So what's up people, and welcome to part 5 in our series on Alita Battle Angel and the discussion regarding the possible content that may come out in its future sequels. Now for today's video, I don't want to talk about the contents in the second movie, but I do want to talk about the contents in the possible third movie and maybe movies beyond that point. Now I know James Cameron has mentioned that he would like to make this into a trilogy, in which case there will be only up to 3 movies. And because of this, I've been thinking about how the story may go even beyond the second movie, because we've already talked about the second movie potentially being the Zapan Arc and the Motorball Arc. So that only leaves one movie left to cover an extensive amount of source material. And so the question I wanted to ask is, because of the limited time and the number of movies that are potentially going to be coming out, do you feel that the Badlands storyline will be left out of the movie? Now, before I go on, I do want to give my default spoiler alert. For this particular video, I will be delving into quite a bit of spoiler material from the source material, because I do need to talk about a lot of things with regards to this particular topic. I mean, you can't really talk about whether the Badlands story will be in or out of the movie or the future movies without describing what the Badlands story is, and even what precedes it and what follows it. And so for this particular video, I may be going into a lot more of the storyline that may potentially come out in the next few movies. So be forewarned, if you haven't read the original series all the way to the end, Battle Angel Alita, then I would suggest that you may want to consider turning off this video unless you don't mind being informed about the possibilities of what may be in the future movies. And so yeah, for anybody who has read at least to the end of the first series, I will only cover the first series and not anything with regards to Last Order or Mars Chronicles. So in any case, this is my spoiler alert, and as always, please watch at your discretion. Okay, so the Badlands storyline. So when I mention the Badlands storyline, of course I'm talking about the part of the main series, the original series that takes place outside of Iron City and outside of Zalem, out in the Badlands, of course. And so, of course, starts in the Tuned Arc and ends in what I call the Destinova Arc, the NORAD Arc, you could call it the Ouroboros Arc. You know, there's a few names that you could refer to, but we all know what covers the Badlands arc. And the reason I bring this up is, once again, when you have a trilogy, you're not going to be able to put the entire, even first series inside, unless you ruin the story by ultra rushing through all of the plots, which will probably make each of these movies feel very bad. And so to give each of the arcs that they will keep in, you know, with a decent amount of time, they will have to leave something out. And no, it's not my choice for them to leave out the Badlands arc. If anything, I would like them to increase the number of movies. But if they're going to leave only with 3 movies, then the reason I talk about this is the convenience that you see in the arc before the Badlands storyline, which is of course the Zapan Arc, and the arc that follows the entire Badlands storyline, which is of course the Zalem arc, the finale. And so this convenience that I'm talking about, without going too much into spoilers, is of course the Zapan arc ends in a very unique fashion, kind of like in a cliffhanger, with the readers not really knowing what's going to happen to Alita due to some of the actions that she has done during the Zapan arc. And of course in the Badlands arc that follows it, in the Tuned arc, of course we find out what happens to Alita after that cliffhanger moment is done. And then of course the entire story goes on into the Badlands arc. Now, why I say this is a convenience is now if we go to the end of the Badlands arc, we notice, of course, that Alita gets into another situation that leaves things hanging. And then when we get to the next arc, which is, of course, the Zalem arc, then we find out what happened to Alita, and she ends up in Zalem and meets with Destinova. And this is the same whether you take the original series ending or the beginning of Battle Angel Alita Last Order when they dropped that Zalem arc for the new Zalem arc in Last Order. Either way, it starts in a very similar manner. And so now, if we drop the Badlands arc, or if they drop the Badlands arc, and we look at the ending of the Zapan arc, that very unique ending that leaves in a cliffhanger, and then connect it to the Zalem arc where you see, what happened to Alita, and she ends up in Zalem, then you find that that connection works out to be quite well. You can drop that entire Badlands arc without worrying about a discontinuity because the cliffhanger leads quite well to what you see later on in the Zalem arc. And the other thing is, I feel that the first movie has left indicators that may potentially go straight from the Zapan arc to the Zalem arc. And so there's a couple of things. First of all, we've already talked about the indicators that we've seen that indicates that the Zapan arc is coming in the second movie. So then if there's a movie following it, what do you expect? Well, in the Zapan arc, of course, there are a few things that the first movie has indicated that the Zapan arc doesn't cover. One of them is the demise of Zalem, and the other is that Nova is up in Zalem. Now, of course, Nova needs to come down to Iron City to meet with Alita and Ito during the Zapan arc, but eventually there's this indication that Nova is up in Zalem. And so if we go straight from the Zapan arc to the Zalem arc, where Alita meets with Nova, then it goes quite well with what we've already seen in the first movie, where we need to get closure on a lot of things. We need to get closure on some of the indicators that have gone on with regards to Motorball, the information that indicates that the next arc may be the Zapan arc that will match the Alita Fallen Angel title, but also the much further closure of the necessity to meet with Nova and to find out what the heck is going on with Zalem and close that entire storyline. And so my feeling is if they're going to keep it as a trilogy, one possibility they can do is to remove again the Badlands arc, go from the Motorball / Zapan arc to the Zalem arc, and then keep the Zalem arc that was in the original storyline rather than go to Last Order to close out this entire trilogy. Because once again, if you go to Last Order, that's going to be a pain because Last Order is far longer than the original series, and there's no way that you could finish it in 3 movies, let alone 1 movie. So if you're going to finish with the Zalem arc, you might as well go back to the one that was in the original story. And that way, you could keep the story continuous. You could close out a lot of the things that were opened in the first movie. And basically have a reasonable storyline going through. Starting from the original movie that we've already saw where Alita wakes up and gets a lot of questions thrown at her, to going through that, all those events and finishing off Motorball and finishing off all the situations in Iron City with the Zapan arc, and then transferring up to Zalem to complete that entire storyline and close a lot of the questions that were thrown out in the first movie. Now, though I say that this is a speculation, this is definitely not my choice to leave out the Badlands arc. As mentioned, my choice would be to lengthen the number of movies, increase the number of movies so that you can put in the Badlands arc and then have the complete story as you see in the original series. And why I feel this way is, as convenient as it is to leave out the Badlands arc and to connect the end of the Zapan arc to the beginning of the Zalem arc, you lose a lot of story and depth when you do so. I mean, there's a lot of great stories that happen outside in the Badlands, and a lot of really important characters that come out in the Badlands. And much of the story is an absolute necessity for Alita to be able to grow in character, to be able to, do the things that she does once she gets to Zalem. And since Alita Battle Angel, or Battle Angel Alita, is very much a character growth and adventure story, you can't leave out a whole section of the story without losing the depth in both the character as well as the overall storyline. So yeah, you could conveniently make a nice trilogy out of it, but I got a feeling that people who watch the movie are gonna feel not as close to the movie as the people who watch the comics, because you're missing out on a lot of experiences that Alita had when she was out in the Badlands. I mean, there are so many good characters that come out, such as KAOS and F4. I won't name who F4 is, but anybody who's read the comic should know who I'm talking about, as well as that entire situation with Tuned. And one thing I will question and I won't understand is one of the reasons that she, of course, goes up to Zalem is to rescue Lou Collins. Of course, Lou Collins is introduced during the Badlands arc. And so if they're not going to introduce Lou Collins, then that will, again, diminish the reasons for her to go up to Zalem. And so, yeah, I mean, I will feel very disappointed if the Badlands arc is removed from there. Because, again, I mean, that entire Barjack arc, for example, is such a good arc for Alita's character growth. And it's such an amazing story that I would really hate to see that go. Anyway, what I hope is this, that although James Cameron mentioned that it's a trilogy, what I'm hoping is that he mentioned that to get a green light and go ahead in the distribution and the development of the movies. But what I'm hoping is that if he succeeds in increasing the popularity of this franchise with the second movie, that he'll have enough justification to go back to the studios and say that this shouldn't be a trilogy and this should go on to include the Badlands arc and properly complete the Battle Angel Alita, at least original series, all the way from the beginning through the Badlands arc to the final conclusion of the original series. And of course, yeah, Last Order, Mars Chronicles, those can be considered way in the future. But right now, there is going to be a pivotal point at the Zapan arc, or after the Zapan arc, of how they want to continue to move forward. And I'm hoping that if the second movie once again does really well, that James Cameron has a follow-up plan for it. Now, one curiosity that has recently come up in a news article, which I'll leave a link to down in the description section of this video, is a comment that supposedly Rosa Salazar had mentioned that she would like to do the cowboy-inspired Alita, which of course a lot of people are probably wondering, what the heck is she talking about? Cowboy Alita? That sounds really strange, but of course she's talking about the Badlands arc. And supposedly she paged through the comics and she saw that really inspirational image of Alita playing the harmonica in the Badlands. And I guess she really enjoyed that image so much that she would like to play Cowboy Alita. And to be honest, if that means that the Badlands arc is going to come in, then I will agree with her. I would like her to play Cowboy Alita as well. And yes, the Badlands arc can be considered the cowboy version of Alita Battle Angel. It will be something like Wild Wild West meets Bourne Identity meets Elysium meets the Terminator sort of thing. And so, yeah, that would be pretty cool. That will definitely be cool if that will, by itself, help bring in a desire from a lot of fans and a lot of people out there to actually put in the complete story of Battle Angel Alita into the movie series rather than cut it short by turning it into a trilogy. So anyway, that's about it for this video. What do you think? For the people who have read the comic and enjoyed the comic, what do you think about how they're going to shorten this entire storyline into 3 movies? And do you feel that they'll remove the Badlands arc if they need to keep it into a trilogy? And I got a feeling with regards to most of you, the comment is, no, I would rather see more movies and have it complete rather than have the Badlands removed and, turn it into a trilogy. So I guess that will be another action for a lot of fans if the sequel comes out, that we will continue to voice our desire to see the complete storyline go through and give this Battle Angel Alita story what it deserves. Anyway, that's about it. As always, please post your comment in the comment section below. And thank you very much for your comments, because I always enjoy reading your comments. I apologize, I haven't been able to reply to as many comments as before due to being busy at my real life. But thank you once again for all your comments. Now, I have to also mention that next week, I will not be bringing out any Battle Angel Alita videos. I will be not bringing out any videos whatsoever because unfortunately I'll be out of town on a business trip. And so I won't be able to bring out the next videos until the week after. So thank you very much for your understanding. And once again, my apologies for not bringing any Battle Angel Alita, Gammu Alita Battle Angel movies next week. But I will start again the week after, and there are other things I still want to talk about. And so I hope you join me at that time. Anyway, so until the next video, which will be 2 weeks away, happy anime watching, happy movie watching, and as always, have a nice day, everyone.